Thank you for your patience. Now we will move on to our keynote. First of all, I would like to introduce our moderator and speakers for this session. For moderators, we have Mr. Tanaka Nobuo, Chair, ICEF Steering Committee, former Executive Director, International Energy Agency, CEO, Tanaka Global Incorporated, Japan. For our speakers, Mr. KIHARA Shinichi, Director General for Energy and Environmental Policy, Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, Japan. Mr. Suman Bery, Vice Chairman, National Institution for Transforming India, India. Dr. Xiangsheng, Chairman of ISETS, former Secretary General of IEF, China. His Excellency Jean-Eric Paquet, the Ambassador of the European Union to Japan, the Delegation of the European Union to Japan, EU. And Dr. Jooho, KHNP former President and CEO. So now I would like to ask Mr. Tanaka to moderate this session. Mr. Tanaka, please take the floor.
Thank you very much. This is a very strong panel. Japan, India, China, Europe, and Korea. What we should do together, facing the challenge of this petrostates and electrostates battle. This is what I try to get out of this. Let's go to KIHARA-san. Certainly, Japan is trying very best for decarbonization and climate change mitigation, but at the same time, energy security is a major issue now. And KIHARA-san is attending all the international bodies meeting like IEA or all other G7-related activities. What Japan is going to do with this current geopolitics or sustainability crisis?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Tanaka, and good morning to everybody. I am Shinichi KIHARA from Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan. I'm truly honored to have the opportunity to participate in this keynote session of the 12th Innovation for Cool Earth Forum. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Chairman Tanaka, the member of the steering committee, the speakers, and all stakeholders involved. The theme of this ICEF is green transformation and energy security. And yes, today, steering energy policy is becoming more complex with growing uncertainty. Geopolitical risks are rising because the events like Russia invasion to Ukraine or the tension in Middle East, and also the challenges coupled with increased electricity demand driven by AI and data centers, and having significant impacts on energy supply, demand, and prices. The burden of energy costs on the economy is also becoming a huge political issue. And the framing by Mr. Tanaka on petrol versus electricity is a very interesting one. And I also, yes, I would say this is also a concept between molecule energy and electron energy. Yes, for Japan, we will do both. And we will live on the technology. We'll continue innovating. That's the way Japan will live through this molecule and electron world. And I will just quickly introduce what Japan is doing lately. Japan has a comprehensive and consistent strategy to address the complex energy climate landscape. And Japan's green transformation, or we call it GX strategies, keeps in action. Important principle of the GX is the triple breakthrough. We aim to achieve emission reduction, economic growth, and energy security simultaneously. We do not sacrifice one for the other. And our goal is not only to realize net zero emission by 2050, but also to win the global industrial competition by leading the clean technology development and building low emission supply chain. To accelerate the overall $1 trillion of public and private investment that's needed over the next 10 years to do this carbon neutral 2050 goal, we designed the big carrot, big stick package. This is called growth-oriented carbon pricing mechanism, but I call it big carrot, big stick package. This is the driving engine, And as the big carrot, last year, government of Japan started issuing world's first climate transition bond amounting 20 trillion yen or 130 billion US dollars for 10 years. The proceeds will be invested in not only renewable energy, not only the already zero emission stuff, but also in hard to abate sectors. Later fall follows the big stick. This May, we passed the law to set detailed design of the emission trading system starting next year, and GX surcharge, this is a carbon tax, starting 2028. So the government's message to the private sector is, move fast. Given the consistent and clear policy predictability, private sectors are making big decisions on R&D and transition projects and reaching out to potential projects overseas. And Japan's energy policy stays aligned with our ambitious carbon neutral 2050 goal, as you find in our new strategic energy plan we released in February. The new power generation mix towards 2040, we will double the share of both renewable energy and nuclear, while reducing the share of thermal power to half. Today, clean power accounts for 30%, whereas fossil power is 70%. We turn this around in 2040 and make it clean power accounting 60 to 70%, and fossil power 30 to 40%. So our base scenario in line with net zero 2050 trajectory expects LNG demand to shrink by 10% from today. But having said that, the government of Japan have also announced alternative scenario. And if the pace of the innovation and cost reduction of hydrogen, ammonia, and other clean technology is slow, LNG demand will increase by 10%. As energy security is the utmost importance, we give heads up on the uncertainty and tell people that we have to be prepared for this plan B. So given the complex energy climate landscape, keeping the balance of triple breakthrough and implementing comprehensive energy, climate, industrial policy is crucially important. The ICEF has been an important platform to address complex energy climate challenges by inviting prominent key players from governments, research institutions, and private enterprises. I sincerely hope that this discussion in the ICEF2025 will deepen our understanding on how to balance decarbonization with energy security and identify possible solutions through strong international collaboration. And Japan will continue to support the ICEF activities and work towards realizing a secure and sustainable energy future of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kihara-san. Very strong statement, and I really appreciate your support to the ICEF future work. To be an electoral state, nuclear is very important, Kihara-san. But I suppose that government is trying very hard, but is nuclear restarting going on as you expected? Or why it's difficult so much?
Yes, in the new strategic energy plan, by 2040, today the nuclear share in the power is 8.5%, but we will double that to 20% by 2040. And after Fukushima, we shut down all nuclear, so nuclear went down to 0. But today, 14 units are restarted, back online, and that is the 8%. And we will continue to restart. There's still more sleeping nuclear plants waiting. Some of them are proven, some of them are waiting for approval, but we will restart one by one. And as you said, this restarting process involves agreement by the local government and a lot of safety regulation, but we will move this forward steadily. And this is a challenge, but this is ongoing. Thank you.
Good luck. But okay, let's move to Suman Bery. Suman, what India is going to do in this kind of global situation in energy and climate change? Certainly, India is asking the membership to the IEA, the global governance. India is the leader of Global South. What is your idea for the future of the energy and climate?
Tanaka-san, firstly, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And let me thank you for that. Let me say a little bit about the agency that I represent. It's called NITI Aayog. NITI in Hindi is policy. So we used to have a planning commission. The current Prime Minister, when he took office in 2014, felt that a planning commission was not appropriate for the philosophy of his government and the kind of market economy India has become. So we are a policy commission, and in that sense are advisory, but do participate in the file traffic. Let me just say that I've heard something about interministerial rivalries in Japan. They are probably the prototype for what we have in India, and so one of the roles of NITI Aayog is essentially to try and come up with a synthesis of plans because we don't have a single energy or climate change ministry. Let me make the point. You already mentioned our application to the IEA, and what is exceptional about that is that the IEA and the strong support of Japan, let me acknowledge that, particularly both MOFA and METI, it's going to be unprecedented because we are not a member of the OECD, and the IEA is a member of, is a creature of the OECD. So the legalities of that are yet to be kind of worked out. So let me now, to keep it conversational, talk a little bit about India's aspirations and its journey so far, and then address the specific issues of this panel as posed by you. So I think the first point is that the arrival of Prime Minister Modi as our Prime Minister in 2014 was in advance of the Paris COP, which I think was 2015. And I do think that people in this room and in the rest of the world should understand that all the advice to Prime Minister Modi at the time of Paris was, look, climate change is their problem, not our problem, we didn't create it, don't let it get in the way of our growth. And it was the vision and leadership of Prime Minister Modi that he appreciated, rightly in my belief, that it was in India's interest to sign up for the disciplines of the Paris COP, to sign up for the disciplines of the nationally determined contributions. And we have been very vigilant, careful in what we commit to, and vigilant in the delivery. We are yet to articulate our revised NDC before the Belém COP. And so, for all kinds of reasons, India has formally signed up first at Paris to NDCs, and then second signed up at Glasgow to net zero by 2070. And those are, I think Japan appreciates very well that India is a country that honors its commitments. So those are, if you like, the building blocks, those are the anchors to how we intend to proceed on energy and climate. But let me also say that Prime Minister Modi, soon after I was appointed, selected by him for my position, that is to say in 2022, after the COVID had been negotiated, he put before India the vision or the prospect of aiming to be a modern society by 2047, what we call Viksit Bharat, a developed Bharat. And obviously, you can't be a modern society without being a modern economy. I should have added that in English, we capitalized NITI as the national institution for transforming India. And I think Prime Minister Modi had very much in mind, in a sense, what happened under the Meiji Restoration here, where the economy was kind of transformed. And that's the kind of transformation that India is aiming for at this point. I think I only have a minute left, so let me make 3 or 4 final points. The first point is that while India has been growing fast, it is still the least affluent member of the G20. Second, that we see if you like, renewable energy as the as responding to India's, if you like, natural resource endowment. I know that Japan and Korea industrialized, despite being fossil poor, but we have a choice now because of what has happened in technology. I would therefore only add that for us, affordability and competitiveness are very important. And my concern for my government and for those who are supporting us, like Japan, is that we not get locked in to expensive energy sources. When I was chief economist of Shell, and I see Vikram Mehta here, who was at Shell in India at that time, nobody had anticipated quite how quickly solar would move down the cost curve. And so the question of having a goal, but dealing with uncertainty and working with like-minded partners like Japan, I think is going to be terribly important. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Suman. I am promoting the idea for Japan and Korea, especially for nuclear and clean hydrogen. What do you think about this nuclear and hydrogen for India?
Well, we already have a hydrogen mission, and we, in all of this, the issue of vulnerabilities in the supply chain do arise. But that apart, I think that we do see hydrogen and indeed the export of hydrogen as an important opportunity. The question of the color of hydrogen, if it's pure green or gray or blue, does become important because our capacity for, as it were, clean energy is somewhat constrained at the moment. Nuclear is a more complicated story, but in our last budget, the government announced both a target for nuclear by 2035 and the willingness and desire to collaborate on technologies with foreign partners like SMR. But I think that the biggest impediment has been our civil nuclear liability legislation, and that has to go back to Parliament, and the diplomacy behind that is underway.
Thank you, Suman. Let's move to Dr. Sun. We are very good friends since the time of you are the head of the International Energy Forum. I'm the head of the International Energy Agency. You are the very rare kind of international person from China in energy sector, and I really appreciate so your frankness and candid view about China's energy or climate policy, Dr. Sun. Well, I talk about this electro-state, and energy security policy is the heart of renewables or batteries, EVs for China. How successful this electro-state strategy is moving in China?
Thank you very much, Tanaka-san. Also, I'd like to say that your introduction is very encouraging. And also, I should say that be a member of this panel is not easy in front of this clever and sharp moderator. To answer your question, because time-wise I see this, so I try to touch some of the keywords and to give a clear picture. And later on, if you have any interest, maybe you can continue for discussions. In front of us, not only China, for the whole world, three uncertainties. The first one, Russia-Ukraine war. The second one, Middle East, Gaza. This is the conflict. The third one, China-US tariff and the trade issues. These are three uncertainties. So far, we don't know what is the solution in the near future. The second one, China in front of three of the pressures. The first one is the climate change, because so much of the issues for the rain, for the flooding and the heat and ice. The second one is climate change. Yeah, the second one is energy transition. Yeah, because China is a big population, 11 bigger the population of Japan, double the population of Europe, more than 54 countries of total Africa, and the 4 times United States. So by such a big population country for the energy transition is not easy issue. The third one, China is also under the pressure of the GDP economic development. Yeah. Time-wise, I just shortened. So these are the 3 uncertainties, 3 pressures, and also China so far achieved 3 bigger achievements. The first one is China now leading the global installed capacity and the power generation scale. As of the end of June 2025, China's installed renewable energy capacity reached 2.159 billion kilowatts, accounting for approximately 59.2% of the country's total installed power capacity, and it has become one of the major power sources in the power system. Second, outstanding industrial chain competitiveness and technology innovation capacity. China has built the world's largest and most complete new energy industrial chain, being the power and the photovoltaic product cover more than 200 countries and regions worldwide. Nearly 60% of global wind power equipment is produced in China, and cutting-edge technologies such as 16 million watt ultra-large capacity offshore wind turbines have been put into application now. The major achievements, that is the new business models facilitate consumptions and synergistic economic development. The state has vigorously promoted the integrated development of power source, grid, load, and storage, and the multiple energy complementary. By the end of 2024, there were over 450 integrated source, grid, load, storage projects nationwide, and the total installed power capacity of over 100 million kilowatts. These 3 major achievements. However, China also has its big challenges. These big challenges, one is the prominent pressures on consumption capacity and the capital supply demand. The second one, the capital utilization and gaps. People think China has a lot of money. No, China is still short of money. Yeah. And the third one, and I just touched them keywords. Shortcomings in energy storage and technology. Because you have a higher level of the renewables, and then the transport and storage become a big challenge. So China, the limitation in production and the grid connection technologies, and dependence on the core components and the resources. So for some of the raw materials, like lithium and others, are still a challenge. Also another one is external environment and industrial barriers for the new business models. And how China achieved so much agreement, achievements, I think the 3 major, these are the policies. So the first one is China has a stabilized policy, not like some country. Today join the Paris Agreement, tomorrow withdraw, and come back again, now withdraw again. China, no. Yeah. Paris Agreement, continue. The second one, China, just 2 sentences. Have this technological innovation drives the cost reduction and efficiency improvement. The third one, China opens the market and they release the broader development space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Son-san. Very, very promising, and I certainly feel that energy and dynamism in China. By the way, my question to you, Son-san, is that just as Suman mentioned about the India is asking the membership of the International Energy Agency, IEA, I have been asking this question all the time in China. China should be the member to the IEA. Do you have any prospect of joining? Even I asked Henry Kissinger to help me to convince Chinese government. He failed, by the way.
Thank you very much. A very sharp question, because your successor also asked me, I don't mention names, and also other people asked me to how to consider this, how to promote China into the IEA. So frank speaking, in the past few years, and China and totally at that time in not the proper status to join the IEA. One, IEA is the member countries of OECD. Right. China is not OECD members. Second, by the IEA's function from the first day set up by the name of Kissinger. And then they asked the function is to protect the energy security and to keep the balance of the energy supply for the oil and gas prices. However, all the members must submit report is the strategic energy reserves, means every month, and how much of the oil reserve you have in your country, and how many days this can be lasted. However, for China, during the past times, is a confidential figure, so cannot report to the OECD IEA. So that's the major barriers. I think even the top leaders, ministers, prime ministers cannot decide this. So that's the reason. Probably in the future, I feel that now, maybe one day. Now, China is one of the observer country IEA. Thank you.
Thank you, Sun. I really wish that China, as a the leader of the electro-state, you should join IEA. IEA should not be the group of petro-state. It started as a petro-state coalition, but now IEA should change into the electro-state coalition. So China should definitely be the member for that.
Yeah. So from this point of view, and the EU and China working together. Of course, we like United States come back and leading this group. However, because of new administrations, they change the policies. So by this, I think EU and China must work together closely, and also by the support of the IEA, and including IEF, also ARENA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, let's move to Ambassador Paquet, and welcome always. You are the regular member and panelist in the ICEF, and I really appreciate. As we talk about this energy security and decarbonization, certainly Europe is the leader. And as I mentioned, do you agree with me, for example, the current American policy, that President Trump's policy is driving Europe closer to China?
Tanaka-san, thank you very much for inviting me again. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here every year and seeing also the developments of the conversation. I think it is fair to say that indeed we're operating now in a particularly challenging geopolitical and trade environment, and this is very much impacting all of us today. I think equally we see also changes across our societies, which are also putting a lot of pressure on policymakers and on the economic, social transformations related also to energy and the green transformation. At the same time, what is also spectacularly visible, unfortunately, is that climate change is accelerating. And I think the last few months have been for all of us, for all our societies, particularly difficult with loss of life, but also of economic value at the largest scale really imaginable. So in that context, the European Union is essentially staying the course. I think at the climate summit in the UN just a few days ago, this was, I think, very visible. And we are staying the course with the overall objective, obviously, of 2050. We, of course, have the 55% reduction objective of 2030, and we are essentially on track for that. We are now about to formalize our new NDC for the discussions in Brazil in a few months, and the range which is being discussed is 66-72. And with that, also a discussion in Europe, which you are familiar with, which the Commission has proposed to go to 90% by 2040. So that broad picture remains the direction of travel for Europe. But at the same time, it's also true that now we are moving into implementation, and this is effectively really challenging, economically, for economic actors, but also for society. And this is where the agenda in Europe is now also driven by our relentless quest for competitiveness, which we share with Japan, with others on the panel, I think, as well. Japan and the European Union just engaged into a competitiveness alliance when leaders met in July here in Tokyo. And under the competitiveness alliance, of course, energy and the green transformation, JX here in Japan, are very central and naturally so. So that's one dimension, and the other dimension, which I think is, of course, very visible as well, much discussed in Japan, is also that we now are reviewing the framework, not the overall objectives, but the framework to simplify. I think there are certainly a number of measures which were put in place which can be smarter, and that's also very much the ongoing discussion now in Europe. In that context, I think the work we are doing with international partners is particularly important. And I would want to focus briefly on innovation, because that's, after all, also the entry point of the forum every year. I think we need to continue to work closely with Japan, but we're also working really well with India, for example, and with Korea on innovation. And we have discussions on associating Japan to Horizon Europe. They are now accelerating. The Commissioner for Innovation was just now in Kyoto, and with Mr. Kyuchi, I think there's a real perspective to complete this association discussion by the end of the year. Korea is already associated to Horizon Europe, as is Canada, New Zealand, and of course, all European neighbors. That's a particularly interesting platform for innovation and for bringing innovations into the market. And I'm very happy to see NEDO so well represented this morning. There is also a great partnership which is being put in place between the European Commission and the European Innovation Council, and also our Innovation Fund and Japanese partners, because I think there is here issues of critical mass and of joining up complementarities in our excellence. And so I think really here the agenda, I think, can be particularly impactful. And I think the lessons learned in Europe on deploying renewable energy, on deploying through auctions a number of these technologies, I think there's a lot with the Innovation Fund which can be shared and discussed with Japan, obviously also with other partners. I finish with security of supply and economic security. I think this is, of course, a central challenge for the Europeans, certainly also for others. Our security of supply is obviously today our energy mix. That's very clear. We have learned the hard lesson with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, of the unreliability of Russian gas, and we are now moving away from Russian gas. I think the track is well documented, but we are moving one step further, and there's a Commission proposal being now discussed to really cut off fossil imports from Russia altogether. The challenge is to have better international cooperation to monitor fossil supplies. I think this is really an extremely important subject. The agency, of course, plays a role there as well, and the cooperation with Japan, I think, is really important. We will continue to deploy renewable energy. That's, in fact, our best insurance in terms of energy security, with, of course, gas, which will remain an important element of the stabilizer of the energy system as we move forward. But here again, there is now a real challenge of economic security around critical raw materials, which is, I think, the new dependency of many partners, particularly, of course, on China. And I think that's really an important conversation to have with China, but also one where we need to reduce progressively this over-dependency. There's good work happening internationally, certainly also between Europe and Japan. And we are working closely with JOGMEC in particular. And I finish on that economic security, critical raw materials dimension with also the conclusion that innovation can play a key role, because when we look at dependencies today, we look at the rollout of existing technologies. But these technologies will evolve and they will change, and there could even be disruption. And I think here again, NATO is doing great work. There's a great innovation also happening under the European Framework Program and other instruments, moving to recycling, to new technologies, which I think can also much contribute to reducing dependencies and therefore allow, facilitate, accelerate also the deployment of renewable energy. So we're staying the course, but we are adjusting because that is also necessary.
Thank you, Ambassador. I certainly believe that the EU is staying the course and leader of decarbonization as well as energy security. And I'm always asking the question, where does CBAM, the carbon border adjustment measures, going? But I raised the issue at my opening statement that maybe CPTPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, could be one interesting way to harmonize the standard or tariffs or whatever, the trade issues, technologies. So do you think, is it feasible to EU to join CPTPP after UK?
Well, we will have discussion to see how best to connect the European Union internal market, so to speak, to CPTPP. I don't think the discussion is about joining. We have, in fact, the economic partnership agreement with Japan, which is already a full free trade arrangement which goes beyond CPTPP. The same goes for other members of that important trade arrangement. But by partnering and connecting the European Union with it, if that is deployed in the foreseeable future, it was discussed around the summit as well, I think this would send an extremely strong signal that rules-based free trade makes so much sense in terms of economic and social developments. You mentioned, Tanaka-san's CBAM, so allow me just to say a word on CBAM. It's occasionally, it remains a controversial policy framework. I think CBAM is really a good illustration of Europe trying to get it right. So CBAM is, of course, an instrument which is aimed at facilitating carbon pricing deployment in the European Union, but is also a good platform for dialogue on carbon pricing mechanisms, and they are around the world very different in nature. There is not one size fits all on carbon pricing, but I think it is widely recognized as a very effective measure, market-based measure, to facilitate this transformation. And as CBAM is being prepared, and the deployment will be very, very gradual. In reality, CBAM will be fully deployed in terms of duties by the end of 2034, by which time I think a reasonable expectation is to think that many of our partners will have introduced to a large extent carbon pricing mechanism, and therefore CBAM will become largely irrelevant in that relationship. I very much hope that indeed the Japanese plans on carbon pricing will move as planned, because that will certainly facilitate it as well. But the important thing to note also on CBAM is that this has been also subject to simplification. I think the initial CBAM proposal was very challenging for partners, and we have now decided that we would have a de minimis rule under CBAM. So for exporters to the European Union under 50 million ton, they will not be subject to CBAM anymore. And with that, we reduce by 90% the actors subject to CBAM. At the same time, we still cover 99% of the emissions of imports into the European Union, because it's essentially big players which are importing into the European Union. So that's a measure of simplification which is particularly smart, and I hope which can also facilitate the very productive dialogue we have with many partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very detailed explanation, Ambassador. Thank you, Dr. Whang. Thank you for your patience of waiting for the last speaker, not the least, but I think Korea is definitely the very, very important player for the nuclear. So I am promoting the idea of Japan and Korea should work together on the future of the nuclear power. And I think you left the company, but you led the collaboration and development of these new technologies in nuclear. Where the Korea stands now on this technology?
Yes, as you said, to survive between petro movement versus electro movement. We need to find a way using technology. That would be nuclear, yeah. Having spent decades in academia and having led Korea Hydro and nuclear power, I have seen firsthand how nuclear energy can advance both green transformation and energy security. I'd like to share that perspective. The climate crisis is already shaking the very foundation of our safety and energy systems. The IEA projects that global power demand will nearly double by 2050, forcing humanity to tackle climate change, energy security, and surging demand simultaneously. Against this backdrop, the world is once again turning its attention, luckily, to nuclear energy. At COP28, nations pledged to triple global nuclear capacity by 2050, showing their determination to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. But anyway, to do that, and recently World Bank has also lifted its long-standing ban on nuclear financing and is now working with the IAEA. Korea has been an active contributor to this global momentum. At home, we operate 26 reactors and are building more, providing the backbone of reliable power, economic growth, and emissions reduction. Beyond Korea, abroad, we have successfully delivered the Baraka nuclear power plant in the UAE, and we are now completing the operational support. We are advancing projects such as the Dukovany Units 5 and 6 in the Czech Republic, and El Daba Turbine Island in Egypt, and Chernobyl refurbishment in Romania. We are also accelerating innovation. Korea is developing its own innovative SMR, and while collaborating with global partners of fourth-generation reactors, such as TerraPower, X Energy, Oklo, and Arc Clean Technology. We are also advancing the SMR Smart Natural City, or SSNC, a demand-driven energy ecosystem built around SMRs, together with 20 to 30% of renewables planted, to cut energy cost by 30% and achieve carbon neutrality. Still, challenges remain before nuclear can firmly establish itself as a solution for the future. First, supply chains, manufacturing delays, quality issues in key components such as reactor vessels and steam generators, and dependence on a small number of suppliers are major bottlenecks. To address these challenges, we must diversify and strengthen supply chains by expanding global participation through standardization and by leveraging local capabilities and in civil works, construction, and materials. We have to call back Mitsubishi, Hitachi, and Toshiba. Yeah. And second, regulation. We need clear and consistent regulatory systems that ensure safety while allowing timely delivery. Frameworks like the UK's Generic Design Assessment and Canada's Vendor Design Review can reduce uncertainty. Regulatory harmonization and mutual recognition can reduce duplication and delays. Third, human capital. Nuclear projects require thousands of highly skilled professionals over decades. The Baraka project alone brought together a workforce from more than 50 countries. Without steady investment in capacity building, we cannot ensure construction quality or sustain next-generation operations. International cooperation in education, training, and research is essential. Finally, to triple global nuclear capacity by 2050, we must build a secure and resilient uranium fuel supply chain. For example, Korea, Japan, and the US should lead efforts to diversify mining, enrichment, and fabrication capacities. We must establish regional fuel banks and assure supply free from geopolitical influence. Through joint investment and transparent governance, we can guarantee reliable access to nuclear fuel. Only then we can help new nations safely join the nuclear energy community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whang. Really helpful, and also I feel that collaboration between Japan and Korea is really necessary in the nuclear sector. By the way, you mentioned, I mean, this question may not be good for you or not, but you mentioned about this 1.5 degrees Celsius targets globally for the net zero emission. With President Trump's attitude toward climate change and his withdrawal from COP, even among the steering committee members of ICEF, we discussed seriously this 1.5 degrees Celsius target is over. Do you agree with this? We haven't concluded in ICEF steering committee members, but what do you think?
I don't agree with his policies 100%, but I really like part of his policies in boosting nuclear power in the United States, which will lead to world nuclear reboost. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we really wish that we still keep this 1.5 degree Celsius target. Kihara-san, what do you think? Do you think this 1.5 degrees Celsius target is gone?
Yes, thank you for the question. And actually, we recently read in the media that IEA is now thinking of pulling back the current policy scenario, which has been gone for several years. And also the difficulty of really reaching the net zero by 2050. So that is something we have to be aware. But many countries, including Japan, are also still committed to the NDCs and each country's target. So what I see, regardless of the achieving net zero 2050 or not, many countries will keep the momentum of this decarbonization. And also for the industry sector, many industry takes decarbonized supply chain as a strength, and it will be part of the competitiveness. So what I think, however, but there will be some change in the concept that not only renewable energy is always the best. It can be, we can use go for the better, the less emission solution will be more, become more important, like switching from coal to gas. This is a good transition. Also, 100% EV may not be possible, but using more plug-in hybrid or hybrid, these are also progress. Okay. So we should go for more feasible solution, use all feasible solution, and think about all of above approach, and not to be limited to the very narrow, only zero emission solution. So we're talking about not only absolute reduction, but we think about more incremental reduction solution. And also, as we think more beyond, if net zero 2050 is impossible, then there will be more discussion around adaptation. Okay. And there's lots of solution around adaptation, And many countries have many solutions for this area as well.
Thank you, KIHARA-san, for the very candid view about this difficult question. How about you, Suman? What do you think about this 1.5 degrees Celsius targets? It's already gone, or we should still keep it?
Thank you, Tanaka-san. So, firstly, I may be wrong because I don't follow that minutely what happens in each COP, but my recollection, and the point is a more general one, and I'll make that, is that the Paris goal was 2% or below. At the, through, as it were, the IPCC, etc. I think people have become concerned about 1.5 as being a tipping point, but the formal commitment was 2% and below, and there is a difference. The second point that I wanted to make is what KIHARA-san said, that from the perspective of a country like India, which is committed to growth, but which does not have the deep pockets to subsidize new technologies, etc., the critical, if you like, fiscal demands are going to have to be for adaptation. And let us recognize that in signing up for its NDCs, the Indian government has always made it contingent on some of the commitments made under the UNFCCC to the sharing of technology and the sharing of finance. So to see these commitments as absolute without the complementary commitments being in place, I think is changing the goalposts a certain amount. And my final point on goalposts, starting from 2% and going to 1.5, is that we got to the concept of the NDCs because the Annex I countries, in a sense, welched. They did not live up to the Kyoto commitments, okay? And so the notion that there needs to be punitive measures like CBAM if you are not more ambitious than your NDCs strikes me as an expression of extraterritoriality, which was, in a sense, rejected in the transition from Kyoto to Paris.
Thank you, Suman. Son-san, what do you think about this 1 degree Celsius target? It's gone?
Frank speaking, I'm a little bit pessimistic. And so far, it's a big challenge. And because one, our big brother, United States, they changed the policy. It's have a very big negative impact for this. Because I joined 3 of these times of the COP meetings, 27, 28, 29. And by this, a lot of discussion. And for the leadership, for the investment, and for these, the small country, developed countries, and also the island countries, they expect the investment support from this. However, if the United States withdraw from the COP and the Paris Agreement, who pay for this? And also for this, the efforts, also the EU and China and other countries make big efforts, but still not enough. So that's the general. So that's the reason why I suggest the EU, China, India, Japan, Korea, all these countries work together. Yeah, some of my friends and from India and even minister and others, they talk to me. I support this. If China, India work together hand in hand, how much bigger population? Yeah. So also we can balance and support each other by technologies, by the market and others. Yeah. So I really feel that today's meeting very important. You gather the 5 of these together, and then if we work together, maybe by the 2 degrees, we still can keep that of the target. Thank you.
Thank you, Son-san. How about you, Ambassador Paquet, about this 1.5 degrees Celsius?
Well, I think it will be for the COP members to take a view on that. And they, for now, have wished in the various conclusions of COPs to keep it as the reference point. It's true that if you look at science and hard analysis, the IPCC report, the scientists which support the Kyoto and Paris agreements last year indicated that to keep to 1.5 degree, we needed CO2 reductions of 48% by 2030. I don't think there are many on track for that reduction. I think maybe one or two would be there. So if you take that scientific analysis, even if there's 5 times left, there is reason to think that the 1.5 degree are very, very, very challenging. In fact, we are largely at 1.5 degrees already. And indeed, this was rightly now just noted by Sun-san. This 1.5 degrees was also related to tipping points. So whether we are moving to these tipping points is still, I think, to be asserted. But you had Johan Rockström last year in ICEF. He spoke again at the UN summit just now in New York. And I think the scientific community is more worried than ever on these tipping points, and particularly on the health of oceans. And so without oceans being able to capture the bulk of CO2, these tipping points will massively accelerate. And I'm not even wanting to comment on marine currents, which are so critical for climate setups around the globe. So there is, I think, every reason to remain as ambitious as ever collectively.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Paquet. Well, we have 2 minutes to go, and I will give just 30 seconds for each to make one last comment about what we have to do for facing this challenge. Let's start with Dr. Whang.
Yes, as I told you before, nuclear power is the mechanism to survive in between the petrol states and electro states. But to enjoy nuclear technology, you need to prepare several things, as I told. And also, still in Korea, Korean government announced a 40% reduction of emission compared to 2018 as NDC. And to meet this goal of NDC, we have to renew the license of the old nuclear power plants, 10 units, which will lead to the reduction of almost 60 million tons of CO2 per year. It is a very needed thing in Korea.
Yeah.
And I think Japan will renew the license too. Yeah. And Japan will follow more. Yeah.
Thank you. We have the nuclear session in the just before lunch today, so I wish you can stay until that time and discuss about small modular reactors. Let's move to Ambassador Paquet. What do you think we have to do now in most as a first priority?
Let's stay the course, but let's double down on innovation. I think the potential is great from across all technologies. And let me give you 2 examples. If we crack the solid-state battery, the question of electrification will change in terms of order of magnitude and speed. And there are now pilot tests in Europe with electric cars moving more than 1,200 kilometers with a solid-state battery. This is not scientific. This is a technological and industrial challenge. And a second example is under Europe's Clean Aviation Partnership. We are at the cusp of having a hydrogen plane. And that could also be another example of a game changer. So let's double down also on clean tech innovation.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dr. Sun.
For the promotion of cooling the earth, Japan, India, China, EU, and Korea, 5 countries work together, can play an important role. Thank you.
Thank you very much for encouraging the panel. This is a great statement. Thank you. Suman Bery.
Simply to say that the reframing that I referred to in my earlier comments has also included a reframing towards, as it were, current emissions. Let us not forget that climate change mitigation is about the stock of carbon in the air and the way in which the remaining carbon budget is being used up is unfair.
Thank you. Kihara-san.
Yes, the ICEF, the title has innovation, and always innovation, technology is the solution to all the challenges, probably even more important. Japan is developing the hydrogen, 100% ammonia combustion or 100% hydrogen combustion thermal power generation technology. So thermal power can, in the future, become CO2 free. Also, there's a electron optic fusion technology for data centers, which will reduce power demand to 1%. These technologies are there. So, and Japan will continue to be the department store of energy technology. And we will continue to contribute to this global challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that fusion is a pet item for the new Prime Minister to be. Madame Takaichi is always pushing the fusion and small modular reactors. So I really wish she will succeed in pushing this technology. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we still can discuss a lot about, for example, the critical mineral supply chain issues, security, but time is almost up. And also, I just want to comment about this IEA's membership of China as well as India. Yes, certainly the current statute of IEA agreement is requesting the membership of OECD first. But if member countries agree, I mean, there is an exception. That Norway is member to the OECD, but they have a separate agreement because they have constitutional problem about joining IEA. So they preferred a little bit different system to agreements to let Norway work with IEA. So if member countries all agree, it is very possible that China, India become a membership. Of course, this is the geopolitical decision-making. But now Mr. Trump's US administration is criticizing IEA so strongly because IEA went very far to the green side. So if United States is withdrawing from IEA, I'm not so sure about it, David, but if that happens, why not China, India join the IEA without United States? This is totally different world of energy security and climate change. Henry Kissinger is not expecting that, but IEA needs to be a winner also. And to be a winner, we definitely need a leader of petro-state as well as electro states, and India and China are really the important player for the survival of the IEA. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my private but very important elements of the global governance which ICEF should discuss about the future, because COP is very difficult process. We need to develop some kind of global governance for climate as well as energy security. And some ideas, these different ideas, CPTPP or IEA or new type of governance, I think, and regional collaboration, including, we need to think in the future of the ICEF discussion about this subject. But thank you very much for joining this, and please join us thanking these great panelists for today.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka, and all the speakers. So everyone on the stage, please rise. Let's send our moderator and speakers with a big round of applause. Thank you very much. So please step down from the podium. Thank you.